Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome to Cut the Crop. I'm your host Anna Heslop, and today our very special guest is Hamish Marr. Hamish is New Zealand's special agricultural trade envoy, and he's also a Methven arable farmer, most importantly. Welcome, Hamish. Now, you've been in this envoy role for a year now. What does it actually involve? Big, long title.
Yes, a big, long title. Look, it's a great question. I think I'm the sixth or seventh iteration of this role. Essentially, I represent the New Zealand farmer and the industry to our governments, to overseas governments, and to anyone that's buying our product offshore, which means travelling overseas 4 or 5 times a year, working alongside our trade officials and our industry people in the market, and be the independent voice of the New Zealand farmer in amongst the goings on of trade. It's really exciting.
So it must be quite a balancing act of how on earth do you know what to do and say? Do they give you any training?
The training's...
Let's keep your fingers crossed.
No, the training's actually very good. I'm employed by the government, but I don't work for the government. And so I'm literally contracted to be the farmer. So I literally work alongside, as I said, our trade officials to be that voice. And so in terms of training, my training is all about my backstory and how I've done a Nuffield scholarship. I'm a farmer. I was involved in Federated Farmers. I was heavily involved with FAR, as you know, and it's all that stuff. It's the New Zealand story is what my job is about. So it's about telling our story and bringing it all together and understanding what's happening in the market and bringing that story to the market here and making it all work together. So in terms of training, it's ongoing every day because I'm learning more and more about the evolution within our markets and what's going on.
So does the story change when you go to different countries?
Oh, yeah.
Are they interested in different things, I guess is what I'm saying? The story's the same.
Yeah, the story's no, people are genuinely interested in New Zealand. Look, it's very humbling to hear. The first thing I hear when I, introduce myself and explain who I am is that actually just about everyone has a perception of New Zealand, and the perception of New Zealand is actually the picture behind you. Lovely landscape, mountains, blue sky, a lovely place to live, and that the product that comes out of New Zealand is first class quality. What's written on the bag is what's in the bag. We're a country of integrity, good people, but actually a lot of people don't understand the farming systems that go on here. The fact that we live right in the middle of the temperate zone, so our animals are outside all of the year, for example. They don't understand the fact that we're not subsidised. So because of that, we have to be efficient. We have to be continually looking at what we're doing and evolving and always looking at efficiency and at production and trying to produce the best we can. Otherwise, with no help, we're in trouble. So it's all of those conversation, but in answer to your question, the perception of us is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's your perception of New Zealand trade officials and what their job is?
Look, I couldn't say enough about our trade officials, to be honest. We have to market ourselves the best that we can do because we export 95% of the product that we produce, unlike a lot of other countries. So our trade officials work so hard on our behalf on getting stuff into market. And it's the government-to-government conversations that us as farmers and some industry, we don't appreciate what goes on in the background in terms of getting things through the overseas countries' regulations. And to be involved in some of those conversations and to be part of them, it's real eye-opening for me. And I think, my message in all of that is that for the farmers listening and the industry, look, work as close as you can with your with the people that are marketing your product, that you've got contracts with, that you're growing anything for. The requirements they put on your seed or your grain or your lambs or your whatever, they're there for a reason, and they're there. A lot of them are there for to enable trade at the other end. So always just try and produce the best that you can to the specifications that you're given, because it makes the marketer's job and the regulator's job that much easier. So we don't see it as farmers, but it's a whole new world. Yeah, very, very humbling world. Yeah.
Take us through. You just said you were overseas 4 or 5 times a year, and you've been to a whole range of developed and developing countries. Yes. Where have you been?
So I started off when I first got this job last year. My first overseas trip was to Australia.
A bit comfy.
Yeah. Dangle my feet in the water, which was fine. And then I've since then been up to the UK and to Europe. Went to India in March, just come home from a fortnight in the United States and Canada, and I'm going to China in about a fortnight. So look, all those countries are so different. I was very fortunate to do a Nuffield scholarship about 5 years ago, and the number one thing that you learn in a Nuffield and actually any overseas travel is to really look at what you're doing and understand what everyone's normal is. We think what we do here in New Zealand is how things should be done, but everywhere is different. And so you go to Europe where there's thousands of years of history, and it's that history that really dictates the way they do things on farm, and it's the history that dictates the way their regulations work. Come back to New Zealand here where our agriculture is not as old as that, and so we think completely different. You go to the United States, completely different again. They've got large open space. They have space, so they haven't got the pressure on them from the urban voice on they haven't got the pressure of housing. They haven't got the people looking over the fence at what they're doing all the time. So it's completely different perceptions. And then you go to India, where they've been doing it for 10,000 years, and the average farm size there is just over a hectare. It's really subsistence farming. India agriculturally is really a developing country, but the thing for me from India was that. They have beautiful soils. They produce so much. They feed themselves, just over 1 billion people. They feed themselves every day. And they only import about 3 or 4% of their requirements. We've got 5 million people, and we import 40% of our food. So it's all of those key differences that you see all around the world, and that makes trade with a lot of those countries quite difficult too, because that all of those things dictate the import regulations and the import requirements, and also what the markets require in terms of if you think about a lamb, for example, all of those different markets will have a different size requirement of what an ideal rack of lamb would be. So
is that consumer driven?
That's consumer driven, yeah. But a lot of that other stuff I talk about is sort of government and in market stuff. So it's all those things that you learn along the way about the interesting dynamics of all of that, and then how we as a trading nation have to meet all of those requirements.
Yeah, so we very clearly can't say this is what we grow. You guys can just take it, because we grow really good stuff and like it or leave it.
I think once upon a time we could have, and when you look at the trading statistics over time, prior to about 1960, more than I think about 3/4 of our export product went to the UK and to Europe. Now it's 30% to China. I think Europe and the EU is about 20%. So we've split our markets a long way, and we've diversified to a lot of different places. But yeah, we really have to be listening to what all those different places require, and work hard to meet the standards and the requirements.
How long are you in these countries for when you do these visits?
I was in India for not quite a fortnight. Yeah, about 2 weeks. I'm going to China for 8 days, but generally about 2 weeks.
So take me through what happens in that time. So let's choose Canada.
Yeah.
You jump on a plane, you jump off a plane, what happens?
I get met at the airport and have a debrief, depending on the time of day we get there, but generally come in at night time or first thing in the morning. Sometimes off to the hotel, have a shower and straight to a meeting. Yeah. By 8 o'clock that night, really ready for bed. But as I said, right at the start, I work alongside the MPI and MFAT's market access people. So they organise my schedule and the meetings. And so I would travel with 2 other people, one in market and sometimes one from here. And we we go through quite an itinerary, 3 or 4 meetings a day. And we would meet with for example, in Canada, we would meet with their state departments on agriculture. We would meet the Department of Agriculture. We would meet the grain growers, people, the seed growers, the poultry, the dairy, all of the industry groups. A lot of times with pre-organised meeting agendas and things. It's quite a thing.
And so your job when you're there, as you said before, is to say, hey, this is what New Zealand farming is about, and this is why we do it the way we do it.
Yeah.
This is how we do it, why we do it.
Yeah.
And then the trade people, the MPIs and the MFATs are doing the negotiating. Or is it about relationships?
Look, all of this is about relationships. And actually in life, everything is about relationships. But there's a very fine line for me as the farmer. And I said at the start again, I work for the government, but I don't speak for the government. I speak for the New Zealand farmer. I speak for our industry. So the line is very clear. Anything government to government, then I steer well clear of, because I actually don't know the answers for those things, and that's for my colleagues who know them to speak to. So yeah. And
do you meet other farmers while you're there? Are you meeting more?
No, most definitely. Yep. In most places I've been to, apart from Australia, we've visited farmers. When we were in Canada, we went to a dairy farm and we met with some poultry farmers. When we were in the US, last time we were in the US, we didn't meet with any farmers, but only because of the schedule we were on. A lot of that visit was in Washington, DC. So yeah, not too many farmers there.
Is it fun?
It's great fun. Yeah. Well, for me, it's great fun. It might not be fun for other people, but I really enjoy it. Yeah. It's a real thrill. It's an honour to be, as I said, in amongst all those conversations and sharing what I learn with our industry.
That's what I was going to say, because you're over there telling them about us, but you're obviously bringing messages home and seeing things and thinking, ooh, or wow. So what are you learning that's relevant here?
Oh, look, there's so much.
As a farmer, let's say as a farmer, or as a for the farming industry rather than the tradie side.
Well, I think we've sort of brushed on it before, and it's that realisation that we are a very small country. We do punch above our weight. There's no doubt about that. We've got a wonderful story to tell, and we dominate the export of some things. So we dominate the export of dairy, the export of lamb. Although last year I think Australia beat us on global lamb exports, kiwi fruit. A lot of things we dominate. But in terms of our overall trade by world standards, we're actually very small. And so we have my biggest thing is because I think last year it was 82% of our income from exports came from the primary sector. We have to be so careful that we don't mess up the trade piece. That's one of the biggest things. We've really got to keep our eye on the prize on all that. The world is gone and got itself very protectionist all of a sudden, and And by protectionist, I mean, in some countries it's about subsidies. In other countries it's about non-tariff barriers. In Europe, for example, the Green Deal, which is a large amount of environmentally focused regulation that they've just brought in. We have to be mindful of what that means for our product going in there. Does it have to meet all of these new requirements? And if so, how do we organise ourselves in amongst all that?
Do we have much? We don't have much say in that.
Look, we have no say in that. Yeah, we have no say in that. We produce 3% of the world's dairy. So regulations, we produce 3% of the world's dairy, but we are responsible for 35% of the world's traded dairy. So, yes, we do a lot, but we will have no say when it comes to what these regulations are, just given our size.
So amongst this protectionist, some of it's driven by the countries themselves, by their farmers groups and unions, but others, what about the consumer? So, worldwide, we keep being told the same story. Consumers want better, they want high quality, they want environmental background for their story, they want the best. Are they prepared to pay for it? That was really quick.
I'm going to cut you off and say no. I'm going to say yes and no. Look, there is a genuine market for all of the things that you just said. There is no doubt about that. And when you go to the US, you go to the any big city, there's always a Whole Foods and the equivalents of Whole Foods all around around the world, and there are people that want to pay for it, but that isn't everyone. But the real question or the answer is actually who is the customer. And so we think of the customer of you and I pushing a trolley in the supermarket, but actually we're not the customer. The customer are the banks, the NGOs, the non-government organisations, and the other industries that are buying our product that want it to the standards that they think is right, and that's the dilemma, because we all want good quality product, but it's not the person that's pushing the trolley up the supermarket that's saying it. Yeah.
Now, this is a curly one to throw in at the end. What's the world view on climate change, greenhouse gas emissions? How should we be looking at that from a market perspective?
Your farmers won't want to hear my answer.
Okay, let's do it. Last one, then you can run away.
Look, the world is talking about, all the world talks about is climate change, environment, emissions, and things like that. We are so fortunate in this country that we have first mover advantage on a lot of these things just by the very fact of the way we produce food. As I said right at the start, our animals are outside all year. We're in the middle of the temperate zone, so stuff grows here. It rains. All of that good stuff. The world is catching up though, and the world will demand, as I've said right through this, that whatever they do in their own markets, there will be an expectation that whoever's they're buying produce off will be doing the same. So we really need to be aware that one day soon, I'm not saying it mightn't be this year, next year, it could be 5 years' time, I think there'll be some currency put on environmental standards, and we have to be ready for that. And I don't necessarily mean that we have to change what we're doing. That's not my message at all. My message actually is that we've got to be able to prove what we're doing and why we're doing it. So for farmers today, it means just collecting data so that when the time comes for FAR to say, right, we need to prove that our wheat is ABCD, we've got the data that can prove that. Because at the moment we're not. I don't think we're capturing enough. One day soon that will come,
and that's going to be whoever's in power in New Zealand. It's not about government policy.
No, and we all say that we want all this stuff to be market driven, and if it is market driven, we'll be happy with it. Well, the market is going to drive it. So one day it will happen, and the challenge in all that is too that these big markets, in their trading markets, they will all have their own separate view on what these regulations and specifications should look like. I mean, we've got our
just like there's different sized lambs for every market.
Just like that. And, we've got our own problems here in our little country. How many different carbon calculators have we got? I was relieved when I was in France last year that the OECD are looking at standardising carbon calculation. So there is one, for OECD countries, there is only one calculator, which would make things quite easy. Yeah. So my take home isn't who's doing what and who's causing what, and is it cows, is it sheep, is it whatever. My message isn't that we're at fault at any way. My message is that because of what we are in terms of a trading nation, we need to really focus on what our markets are saying, and they are all talking about that. So,
final question. Do you still get time to be an arable farmer?
Yeah, most definitely. We were drilling. I was drilling this morning. I actually driving up the road yesterday, and we had strong northwest wind yesterday, and lost a door off a tractor that wasn't latched properly. So yeah, I'm still very very much a farmer. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good to know, because we need good farmers as well as good agricultural trade envoys.
Yeah, yeah. Look, and I guess, we have wonderful farmers in this country. We are blessed with the industry support that we have, both from our levy organisations such as FAR, but also the seed companies and the merchants that we all work alongside with each other so well. And to me, that cohesive and collaborative relationship that we have in this country is, has got a fair bit to do with the success we have in the arable industry, because we've all got a vested interest in getting it right, and we do get it right mainly.
Well, thank you very much, Hamish. Enjoy your trip to China.
I will.
And everybody else out there, have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.